Yang tak, yang tengah lah. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and a very good afternoon to everyone here today, physically and virtually. Yang berbahagia, Datuk Wan Ismail Wan Yusof, former Senior Management Member and General Manager of Strategic Relations, Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad. Mr. Chan Jin Wee, Chief Operating Officer, Bond Estates Syndrome Berhad. Mr. Zikri Khalil, co-founder of Incitement, and our moderator, Mr. Asfazam Kasban, the Assistant Resident Representative of Program UNDP. Welcome to the Financing Sustainability, the special sessions number 4 for this Malaysia Urban Forum. And ladies and gentlemen, I would like to invite the moderator, Mr. Asfazam Kasban, the Assistant Resident Representative Program from UNDP, to moderate. Please be invited. Thank you.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good afternoon to colleagues here physically in the ASEAN Exhibition Center during this World Urban Forum. Right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to colleagues, friends, old friends, sifus, gurus here to this special session on financing sustainability. Let me first introduce about myself. No, okay, all right. I'm Asfazam Kasbani. I'm from the United Nations Development Program, Malaysia, Singapore, and Brunei, office in Putrajaya. So you can just call me Asfa. So we are here in this financing sustainability session, a special session dedicated to issues related to how we are going to finance sustainability issues at the local authority level, at the national level, mainly at local authority levels, looking to sectors macro and micro financing. All right. Okay. With me, I have three gentlemen, and we are supposed to have one female speakers as well. But unfortunately, Dr. Aini is not able to join us due to some health reason. Nonetheless, we have planned for a gender sensitive panelists, that's for sure. But unfortunately, we are not able to make it happen this afternoon. But nonetheless, our panelists will unpack some of the issues that I have explained a bit just now, and we're gonna try to elaborate all these issues within an hour's time that given to us. All right. Before I go further, some of the guiding principles about financing sustainability that we are supposed to discuss is what's the enabling conditions that that needed to be in place for cities to be able to leverage long-term financing. So when you talk about long-term financing, what are the sources that can be looked into, whether it is traditional sources, conventional sources, or any other innovative sources, or probably we can look into issues, maybe Islamic financing as one of the potential sources of funding. And then we shall also look into what are the key components required in this process, and then what will be the fundamental purpose of it, and what will be the policy framework needed, and how we can bring these ideas back to our policymakers, to local authorities, state government, as well as the Ministry of Housing, to ensure that we have the necessary component, we have the necessary recipes to ensure that our local authorities receive sufficient funding for sustainability. A little bit about local authorities funding. I think, as you probably know, under the almost similar in Commonwealth situation, Malaysia is a three-tier government, national, state level, and also local government. The local government basically receive three sources of funding: taxes, non-taxes, and also grants from state as well as the federal government. So more often than not, taxes, non-taxes constitutes more of many of the local authorities, local governments funding. Nonetheless, they are also looking to how to prioritize funding in terms of sustainability, and the issues about sustainability has always been a key concern when we talk about investment at local authorities level. All right. So what other issues that we shall be able to deliberate this afternoon? The role of financial institutions. How do we then prioritize conventional funding versus sustainable financing? How do we then look into issues related to sustainable energy, for instance, at the sectoral level, buildings, transportation sector, and all that. And then how do we then prioritize green investment? Maybe some other options like green bond, sukuk. How can then we bring this at the level of local authority? And last but not least, the role of the social entrepreneurs, the role of microfinancing in eradicating poverty. Remember, what we are discussing here, while we are looking into sustainable financing, at the end of the day, we are also looking into the achievement of the sustainable agenda, which is the Agenda 2030, Sustainable Development Goals. If you look into the goals, goal number 1 until goal number 17, goal number 1 is the priority is always on poverty eradication. And sustainable cities on SDG 11 and sustainable consumption and production on SDG 12. Those actually, although it has a significant goal, it does mention about this, but it is all interrelated. So it is hoped that by 2030, those factors will be included in terms of trying to achieve the development objective of at the national level as well as local authority level. All right, there's a very short, I would say, opening remarks before I move on to our panelists. Shall I now start with our first panelist, Dato' Wan Ismail? Sorry if I can just get the name right. Yeah, okay. So yang berbahagia Dato' Wan Ismail Wan Jusoh from Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad. So what do you think of this financing sustainability issues at the local authority levels? How can you think Islamic financing can come in and also assist the government in terms of prioritizing sustainability issues in their investment? Dato'. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Asfa.
Asfa, yeah, Asfa.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So first of all, I would like to thank the organizer for inviting me to this forum. If not mistaken, I was here in under the Urban Forum 2 years ago, was it? 2 years ago, and it's quite interesting because you want to try to explore what are the possible ventures, especially on the financing sustainability. And what I'm trying to focus actually, because earlier days I saw the participant, the panelists, like CEO of Bank Rakyat, from Amanah Ikhtiar, all these people, so my intention basically try to focus on the third wave economy, especially on the third sector, which is wakaf. That was my intention. And during my last forum, last 2 years forum, I was focusing on this one as well. But since we don't have bankers around, so maybe I got to touch a bit of the conventional one. And then we come to Islamic as well as, because when we talk about sustainability, to me, wakaf is one of the instruments. Wakaf, infaq. So these are, to some extent, it is not well tapped in many organizations that is supposed to be responsible with all this. And fortunately, I'm being appointed as a member of MAIDAM, Majlis Agama Islam Terengganu. So where wakaf, zakat, infaq, all this are under this organization. So they are the authorities, like in Kuala Lumpur we have MAWIP, Majlis Agama Islam Wilayah. Selangor we have MAIS. And then various other state, they have those institutions. So talking about the financing availability, the conventional and the Islamic, it's almost alike now. Wherever you have solution in conventional, you have the Islamic one. So to that extent, probably we don't have a limitation to get the access to all this. So it depends on the suitability. Why do you need to take the financing? And then you have to see whether the cost is effective enough. If you take financing where it costs the organization certain sum of money, and whether it is worthwhile. So there are a lot of opportunities now. It comes to the stage people raise sukuk and even crowdfunding for that matter, just to make sure you get the participation from many parties, as well as the more effective means of getting the fund, and as well as the utilization of the fund. So talking about the various banking facilities, I'm sure most of the people know about this already. You're looking for maybe corporate finance, SMI, SME financing, all those are available in the market, both Islamic and also conventional. So I suppose we are exposed to all this. It's just like what the chairman said earlier. Maybe one of the most important agenda is poverty eradication. So I think other than that, it's quite independent, quite stable already. When you talk about you need the corporate finance for anything, SMI, SME. So these people, to some extent, quite being provided with specific needs by, say, PUNB beside the bank. And also for eradication, poverty, like Amanah Ikhtiar also doing the same. And then Amanah Ikhtiar, then the other one is YAPIM, and many other organizations. In fact, some foundation also doing that. So it is there. But most important, how is the activities being carried out? To me, when we talk about poverty eradication, it's not just giving money. If you give the money, they use the money gone, so what do you get? So like when you want to assist people, it is not that you give fish, but you give the rod. Go and catch the fish. Then from there, you can sustain further. If you just use fish, once you eat the fish, finish. So this is what I really meant in this matter. Better focus on giving the money to suit their needs, and then we have to make sure they use the money wisely according to what it should be, rather than just spending money. So I think this is one of the focus now. And like even in the religious council, they have the asnaf money given to asnaf for 500, 1,000 ringgit, all this. But the money just finished like that. Of course, there are needs that you need urgent. Something for food, something for clothes. The one you give the money, they use it on the spot. But more important, maybe we have to look for long term, how to ensure these people can survive in their future undertaking. They have their kids to go, to move on, and then the families and so on. They need house, and everything. So if they are given special program, it need not be when you give a financing to assist somebody, you must give 10,000, 5,000. They can even start with 1,000. So you have to groom them. You have to supervise that they do correctly. But people might say that you need to spend a lot of money to cater for this kind of needs. But to me, more important when we talk about poverty eradication is the result. We reduce the number of poverties in the country, and then of course everybody become more independent, and of course we cannot get 100%. I mean, the no poor people at all, that will not happen. That will be very difficult. But at least we can reduce the number. So I think like what Amanah Ikhtiar is doing that, and then Yapim. But most of the organization, they simply give the money and then you go. And then in many cases that we can see today, even I think the government's agenda now giving a lot of prihatin and so on. There, I suppose, if they need the money, they take the money under the present maybe situation. Your salary is cut, maybe your business is not doing well, so you need the money to support. But maybe beyond that, how long are these people going to be like that in terms of sustainability? Are they going to improve their business? Are their organization going to go for better and can pay better, I mean, back to old salary, full salary, or only half, 50%? And we can see more and more to the organization. If it's the big organization, also they're going to cut salary, and also there will be some maybe termination because of they don't have the job to do. I mean, you see airline, it's very, very clear. The big airlines and also supermarket in America, JC Penney also closed, Kmart also closed. Those are the big supermarkets. The giant supermarket in America also closed. So meaning here, here is even, we are facing the same thing. We see some giant and some outfit, they have to close, maybe because of the business volume is not there. They are more focused, reduce the number and so on. So that definitely the salary cut will be there. So maybe the government is focusing on these people, prihatin and so on, but we hope in the short run, everything will be addressed. But I'm more talking about when we talk about poverty eradication, it's a long-term process, long-term process. So we have to identify, let's say for the poor people, call it asnaf. Who are the asnaf? And then what do they need? What kind of things that they can do? We can see there are people, they can just do anything to raise money. But there are people, they cannot do anything. You ask them to do anything, they say they can't do it. They are not keen, they are not interested. But some, they just do any donkey job and get money to support. So there are various types of people, like what we can see today in our country. Who wants to work in the construction sector? We need to employ, engage people from abroad. Our people do not want to do that kind of job. In the estate, plantation. So what will happen? So if that's the case, you have the opportunity to get money, to make money, but you don't go for it. So there must be ways and means how to make sure these people work. They don't just stay, relax, do nothing, enjoy, mak rempek and so on. They should be working. They should be working. But what sort of program that we have to employ? So for example now, those foreign people, they go back to their country. Now they cannot come back. So there will be a lot of vacancy in the construction sector, even in the MEC also, and then in the plantation. Who wants to replace this? I think this is good opportunity for the people to come in, or maybe a kind of initiative or incentive to bring these people to do the job. Because sometimes this thing is like psychology, you know. When you talk about agriculture, people do not want to work in the agriculture sector. Why? Because their parents discourage the agriculture sector. Why? Why discourage? Because earlier days, you have to go, if you're a paddy planter, you have to be under the hot sun. you cut the paddy and then you do all this, to produce the paddy, and that one is, I mean, very bad experience. So you come to the stage, to the parent, agriculture is not good. So in terms of class, it's lower class. I was the board director of UNISA. We have agriculture faculty.
I thought you have 1 more minute to.
Okay. Okay. We try to focus so that these students be trained to become entrepreneur towards the end. So this is what we want to see things moving so that people appreciate. Because abroad we can see agriculture people, even in Thailand, they are rich people. But here we look down at agriculture. So I think that's all for the time being. So we talk further.
Yeah, we'll elaborate further in the next session. Okay. Next speaker, I would like to introduce Mr. Chan Yin Jin Wai from Bond Estates Sdn Berhad. He's the Chief Operating Officer, CEO. So Yin Wei, I mean, probably you can also help us unpack this issue. How do you see sustainability is being financed at the private sector side? Especially how do you translate that into your asset, and how do you convince your managers, senior managers, in terms of making that difficult decision, focusing on the financing your asset, especially linking this back with green financing. Oh.
Right. Thanks, Asfa. Of course, thanks to Urbanice Malaysia for inviting me, and of course the panels right next to me as well. So of course, in terms of real estate development, we are not on the financing factor, but I think it's more of the end user or the builder, so to speak. So I think from the day that we actually started the company 2-3 years ago, about 3 years ago, the board of directors was actually very convinced financing sustainability agenda was actually picking up speed back then. And just to relate a little bit of a brand called Tom's, it's actually an overseas American brand. They design shoes. So every pair of shoes that you buy, another person in Africa will get a pair of shoes. I think we were motivated with that initial agenda. And thereafter, I reckon that it kind of caught the sustainable bug in us. And we decided to say, hey, why not we build something which is more sustainable? Sustainability comes in many forms, especially in development. The first one is definitely in terms of energy efficient homes. So I think, as I shared with you earlier, Asfa, we were very happy that we worked together with UNDP, BSEEP as well, and also JKR to look into how we can actually build more energy efficient homes. So by doing so, it reduces carbon emission as well. It also helps to reduce temperature in the houses as well altogether. So we use materials like low emission windows to ensure that the house is cooler. Second point is also that what we did was also we focused on the design, making sure that cross ventilation within the units are there. This definitely helps because most of the time, I think last time, when you stay in a landed house, you get very nice breezy winds, right? But these days you get so many tall buildings coming up. The landed house don't really get so much winds anymore and breeze anymore. So that's one point. But I just want to digress a little bit as well. When we started the company back then, the company mission was also to craft quality living spaces and also to with sustainable building and empowering communities. So why I want to bring this up, it's not just only on the financing alone. I think first and foremost is the mindset of the business driver themselves first. Financing can come, materials can come, but if the driver of the business is not in this frequency, I reckon whatever incentives that come is going to be just number driven, profit driven, right? As businesses, it's definitely profit driven, right? But I guess we are aligned internally that we want to build something sustainable for our future buyers or even future communities that we are trying to empower. Empowering communities not just only on the buyers alone, but also to nearby businesses, education. Dr. Wan mentioned just now very, very specifically, you can give them fish, but how long can they eat? So giving them the rod, they can fish forever. So I think that's a point that we believe in as well. So just to touch back on financing, yes, I think by us investing into materials like this, it helps us to allocate funds to invest in materials, ideas, and also execution in this direction. of course, normal project financing is still conventional lah. Yeah, so that's my point. Yep.
Thanks so much, Jin Wai. All right. We heard about overall financing and especially on Islamic financing. We heard about private sector side of financing. Let's move on to and a very exciting speaker, Zikri Khalil, CCO, I believe a Chief Creative Officer, Communication Officer, all right, from Incitement. Zikri, perhaps you can help us unpack what's that beyond the CSR, beyond philanthropical kind of work. Is a pure investment looking into sustainability, looking into sustainable development goals as the end objective of the investment. Zikri, yes.
All right, first of all, thank you again, Urbanice, for having me. I was actually on another session earlier this morning, moderating. And this time I get to be on a panel, which is much more preferable. But thank you so much for sharing that question, because there's a lot of factors that we have been focusing a lot on, going beyond just CSR or beyond a social project. I always try to educate the private sector a lot that CSR is not just CSR, it's your branding, it's a marketing tool to kind of showcase that your brand is doing more than just having good profits, that you are looking at more communities around where the companies are residing and how are they trickling their influence from giving jobs and so forth. So we've been in this industry for almost 10 years now, and of course the learning curve for the companies did not start to skyrocket until the SDG goals were announced, because there were incentives for them, and fair enough. But moving forward, we're blessed to have met a lot of companies who were open to, instead of just focusing on their CSR budget, which is always the smallest of any companies, if they ever want to do CSR. And usually when you do want a CSR, there's an ad hoc committee. There's not even a CSR department unless it's part under the corporate comm, or unless it's part under the HR, when they do HR-related activities for their staff. But what I've been telling them is, look at how you could use this to market impact. Advertising impact, for example. A very good example is, if I were to look at fundraise a campaign that needs 100,000 ringgit, and all of a sudden you get like 10 to 15,000 people just donating 50 cents, 1 ringgit, 2 ringgit, and there's already a lot of eyeballs, a lot of people. A brand can just come in and just buy out, and that is another way of buying out your advertisement for your brand, to show that, okay, there's 15,000 people who donated 1 ringgit, I'll just buy out the remaining of the amount, so people can see me as a company that we're doing more than just selling soda water or selling houses and so forth. And a lot of companies are getting smarter now, and they bandwagon all the time during festive seasons. So if right now Christmas is around the corner, which is always the season of giving, so is Raya. So a lot of companies are looking at, how can I do more sales with having more trust for customers to look at our company as a company that just do more than just doing what it is. Because business in general is in definitive, is layman terms, it's helping someone with a service or a product. You're helping someone at the end of the day. The essence of business is that. So you are always helping your consumer, your client, your customer, and so forth. So one of the very easiest way for a product-based company, say Coca-Cola or PepsiCo, and so forth, is trying to showcase that for every bottle you buy, just like the Tom's model, a ringgit of the Pepsi bottle you buy will go to this liter of light, which is touching on eradicating energy poverty, SDG goal number 7. And this is something that we've been championing since 2015. And I think in Malaysia, we've done about 50 villages. Globally, we've built nearly 1 million solar lights worldwide. And it was an easy way for brands to gain market share. PepsiCo Pakistan, who did the same thing of what we did here, gained 1.1% market share from the competitor, Coca-Cola, by simply doing a simple marketing impact. That's what we call it. And they can measure. The only downside with this is when they see too much success, there will be consequences. And usually, in the case of Tom's, for example, it's a great model. You know, every time you buy a shoe or and so forth, you're giving shoes away to someone. But from an economic perspective, it does hurt the local shoemaker. So they are the ones who end up having issues to have more sales on the shoes. Slowly, the quality of the shoe that's been given away isn't as good as it was before, because that happens when you scale, right? When we scale, we end up trying to cut corners, or not to say cut corners, that's not the right way to say, or in a more political way to say it. But trying to find better means to, make sure that everyone's covered. And the third thing I like to emphasize, as much as the banks are trying to focus on sustainability, as much as other companies, the other missing piece here is to look at what can you bandwagon. And our chairman here was talking about the third wave, and part of that third wave is to look at how can you digitize also your infrastructure or structure to have better outreach. That's another thing. We were talking to institutes like Yayas and Hasana the other day, who are looking to digitize their entire ecosystem, because it reduces the workload, it allows them to do more. Another thing about reporting, I don't know any of you have ever read a CSR report with 300-pager diligently. I don't think that's a known thing that most people want. Most people want nowadays are something quick, easy, and shareable. And the way we can do that is render that old CSR reporting obsolete by creating a new system of reporting. You can do that with AI, with data. Everyone's driven by data. And data is exactly what we need. And with digitizing your reports with the right variables, and of course, different companies have different expectation of what is impact. You still have those who are like number of attendance versus number who really got jobs at the end of the day. So you still have those different levels of left and right? So that's another aspect, to try to digitize as much as you can, to push the envelope further with whatever SDG goals that you're focusing on. And the way to do that is to look at technology. Lastly, I'd like to point out is funding, which is one of the issues with sustainability, really, to finance. Most of us, we go to a crowdfunding platform to crowdfund, where 90% of the time, your campaign will never achieve. Second is, I look for grants, I look for funding, I look for companies who can do corporate donation. So we are sort of limited in these two main avenues. But there's a third avenue here that we actually just explored, and though it's already quite known in some apps that you use. So for example, if you use Grab, sometimes they have this campaign, hey, donate your points to this NGO who, and for every 100 points equals to 1 ringgit. And points is another way to aggregate more engagement for brands with their consumers, plus use points as a way of donating. So points do have value. So we're right now pushing the envelope in this focus now. If you have if a bank like HSBC or Bank Islam with credit cards, for example, they gather points and they are about to expire, the engagement there it's not strong enough for the banks to come and hey, do something, spend on something. But your points is like 50, 100, 500, 200, doesn't worth much. It's worth 1 to 2 ringgit. What you can do is we get them to donate those points to your most resonated social projects on the platform. And those points do turn into monetary value. And second is great for brands, because brands now can get engagement. What can they do more, and consumers get more, they are educated, like, oh, I didn't know I could do that with my points. So this is amazing. I would like to do more of that. So a bank with a 3 million credit card holder with points, just imagine the volume of the donation that you could give away before they expired. So these are, again, looking at high, undervalued assets that we can capitalize to look further on financing sustainability. So that's
thanks,
it for me for now. Now.
Yeah. No, I wish we can turn our Mesra card, not promoting Petronas, converting our Petronas points to fuel for the B40 and vulnerable people. I would like to pick up some of the things that you mentioned just now. Where CSR is also associated with the branding of how organization try to replicate this subject matter as best possible. And I would like to bring this back to a mantra that has been given to us for so many years, which is kepimpinan melalui teladan, leadership by example. And I would like to bring this back to our topic about how we can assist the local authorities and also the government in this aspect. If you look into the government-linked companies or GLIC, you know, how do we then advise them to improve their branding? CSR is no longer about philanthropy kind of exercise, and how do we then see this I would say in branding investment sort of thing, so that they're able to eventually help the people on the ground, the B40 people, helping eradicating poverty. So what is your perception on that? From Zikri, then I will also ask Jinwai from your private sector's perspective, how do we then show leadership in this aspect? How do we then, from private sector side, how do you work together with GLC in this aspect? And Dato' will then require your views in concluding this topic. Yes, Zikri, please.
Okay, sure. The session I moderated this morning was about youth not being heard, not being taken seriously. You know, they're not really listening to them. You know, and the youth feel that they don't have access to their services, public services. They don't have centers to go hang out, not enough gardens or whatnot, not even enough getting financing, not enough representative. And this is sort of building up, as we can see in the whole landscape of Malaysia now. But the way how I would like to say bluntly is, if GLCs can try to have no politically appointed people on their heads and give them more independent way on how they can focus on which sector can they go based on the experts that they have already, because we do have a lot of very talented Malaysians who came outside Malaysia, coming back here through Talent Corp, for example, and they try to lead. But sometimes, you know, the environment around them has a way of dictating them that kind of lessen their productivity rate. And this is something that we talked about earlier also, where we are great at building blueprints, but when it comes to implementing, we suck, you know, to be honest. We could do much better. And that's what I want to say bluntly in the beginning, you know, just get the GLCs, you know, they are still getting, you know, the support from of course, from the federal, from Al Khazanah, if they are part of shares of Khazanah, you know, but at the end, just give them the independent to run just like how, you know, other private companies are run, because they need that space to breathe, I feel. And with the way they've done CSR, yes, there's already some of them moving very far away from the traditional way and looking at the new narrative, which is more on, you know, with this new Industrial Revolution 4.0, what is CSR in Industrial Revolution for 4.0? And like I said, on the private sector side, the perception of trying to market more impact as a CSR is more popular for them because they see results endlessly, as simple as that. Most cases are not in Malaysia yet, most of them are in the region. The Thais, they're actually doing really well. If you've seen their Thai adverts, that's a way of trying to link to their product in a sense. And then when you actually go beyond that advert that they advertise, always someone crying lah, you know. But if you go beyond that, you see they do more than just advertising this emotional story. They do have very focused CSR-based framework to support the local farmers, support local businesses, even the women and so forth. The other part is, you know, the like I said, the structures of our GLCs, I feel, is a bit behind compared to, not all of them, of course, some of them are still behind compared to our MNCs here. You know, they are moving fast, they are quick, they're agile, and they understand, and they're more daring to take new ideas on how can they brand themselves. Like, for example, when this whole plastic straw outcry of, you know, finding it in a turtle's nose, immediately we banned plastic straw immediately. Like, it was like overnight, just like that. So do we have to wait for another, you know, tragedy like that for someone to start, you know, taking initiative? So that needs to be more efficient on our side. And like I said, we need to digitize more structure so that the work rate can be more higher, and so is production for more results. Yeah.
Thanks, Zikri. Jinwai, I mean, what's your opinion in terms of getting private sectors to come in, and how do you work together with GLCs? At the same time, how do you then influence the decision makers, I mean, within the private sector's realm, in terms of getting them to go more for CSR, and help to tell them that as much as possible to allocate some funds for sustainability purpose.
Hello. Yep. So thanks, Asfa. So I think in terms of GLC, from my personal experience with GLCs is, I believe they have their own CSR initiatives. Probably it's also measured with KPI as well, right? It's also aligned to the government's agenda and the business agenda as well. But from a private sector wise, maybe I just dial back a little bit. I do feel that consumers now are very, very intelligent, very, very resourceful. They know what they're getting themselves into whenever they buy a certain product. I think if they were to buy let's say a bicycle, right? They'll probably do all their Google searches, they've done all their Laoyat searches, their Facebook searches, their YouTube reviews, they have done all the researches. They're so intelligent these days, right? So where I'm trying to drive at is that I think with the consumers themselves, the real pull factor is really not so much on the private sector like us to drive GLCs to be participative in sustainability. I think it's the consumers, the people themselves, they have the power to do so. Why I say that, let's just take for example, in Bond Estates, we focus a lot of craftsmanship, right? So I just take just one example, like in Japan, when you buy a teacup, the material that they use, they will source it locally, whether it's from the forest, whether it's from the river, whether it's from the cave and whatnot. So these are the natural resources available locally. But whereas in Malaysia, I feel that we are still slacking a little bit in terms of wanting to source for local materials and also making a story out of it. Personally, I bought a teacup from Japan. It was made out of charcoal. It's from this so-called prefecture, and the story was so enlightening. And it's like, oh wow, when I come back, I can talk about it and share it with my friends and my family. But here, we don't really emphasize so much in craftsmanship, in really maximizing the sustainability of the resources. That's one thing I can talk about sustainability. But in terms of financing for the GLCs to be part of or to allocate more, probably they need to change the KPIs. I think if it's really KPI driven, then it's really not very much sustainable anymore, because it's a goal I need to meet so that I can get a 2 months bonus or 6 month bonus to meet that number, right? And when it's that point to drive you to allocate that budget to achieve that, then I think it's the wrong mindset altogether. I just want to quote, I think yesterday, Tan Sri Zakri, he mentioned something about cultural and societal change, which is totally mindset change. Well, you can have the best strategies, you can have the best action plans. At the end of the day, implementation, execution is still the last mile. Yeah, I think winning the 100 meters is not our first 90 meters, it's the last 10 meters. And we usually just fall short in the last 60 meters. Right, so I mean that's my point of view. Yeah.
Right. Dato', your opinion on things related to the ones that we discussed just now?
We have touched on the CSR matters. To me, this is something that probably still lacking in terms of control. In fact, I could see like some organization, especially Majlis Bandara, State City Council, and some other organization where they can play the role, tapping the responsibility of the corporate organization. Because every corporate organization, they are supposed to provide CSR. At least certain percentage of their income must go to CSR. This is compulsory. You have to report in your financial report how much CSR you spend. That is equal to certain percentage of your total revenue. So it depends on how we tap it. So when we talk about maybe poor people, something that we need to address. Maybe we need to form like foundation, yayasan MBSA, yayasan DBKL, or some other yayasan. Because this corporate organization, actually, they want to park their money, they want to spend their CSR in a very meaningful way. But sometimes they cannot see. That's why when it comes to like Hari Raya, they bring a group of people, students, and buy shoes, shirts, and so on. Just that. Actually, you can do more. You can do more. I remember when I was in board of director UNISA, the minister tasked me to collect 20 million within 1 year wakaf money contribution. We managed to get it. Some, of course, with commitment. There's a few organizations giving 1 million, 1 million, 1 million, 3.5 million. We get total. So what's important is you have to create the value proposition, then people will come. So from the perspective of those who want to take care of these poor people and so on, you give value proposition to this corporate organization because this CSR link also to branding. What do you contribute? Just to give you a simple example, UNISA, we got hospital coming up. University Sultan Zainuddin Terengganu. We got hospital coming up. So we plan to ask for bus. That bus we convert into mobile hospital, where we need somebody, organization, to contribute to purchase the bus as well as the equipment. We go to a bank, and that bank basically, they're very keen, very interested in that. But of course, sometimes it's not that easy because you're asking for 1.5 million. You have to go through a certain process. So why they want it so much? Because when they purchase the bus and then they buy the equipment, at the bus, you will write there, this mobile hospital is wakaf by certain bank. You name the bank. So for example, when you talk about wakaf, a bus, to the Muslim community, for example, they really appreciate that this organization, they do this Islamic cause. And for that matter, even a non-Muslim based bank also would like to do that. So you just imagine, this bus is wakf by this ABC bank, a non-Muslim bank, non-Muslim based bank, for example. So the Malays, we say, oh, very good. They even contribute CSR, wakaf, to assist the poor people, so that these people will get medication in a very cheaper form, for example. So we have a few parties. And then we went to other organizations. Maybe you offer them something, like name of the faculty or the name of the room after the name of that organization. So people will see this bank is contributing, this organization, corporate organization, this GRC is contributing. So that is very much sought, but you have to draw up the plan. So for example here, I could see, because we start coming into this, we got, if you heard about Johor Corp, they have Wakaf Ano. They started with 200 million, their Wakaf now already amounting to 800 million. How does this amount grow? And there is another corporate organization, by December, they're going to launch the Wakaf. Why? Because they could see, with that, they can assist the needful people, the poor people, not only within their organization, but also the community at large. So like Johor Corp, they can use part of the money to to cover the medical expenses because they have hospital. They can cover on other aspect. So to me, I think if, for example, local council, they would like to set up this kind of fund, wakaf fund, for example, you get contribution from various parties. So they come with that money. Now you have the money. When you talk about wakaf, you cannot use the capital. The capital has to grow. You got to invest. The product or the result, the outcome, the profit that you can use for whatever purpose deemed fit. So, like Johor Corp, for example, with that much of money, some of the contribution, most of the contribution come from the subsidiary companies of Johor Corp. So this new, the other organization they're about to launch, you're going to see this in December, inshallah. Another big fund. They expect to be even bigger than that. Contribution from the subsidiary companies, contribution from the corporate organization, contribution from people, the staff, and so on. You can grow the money. So with that, you can create, for example, financing. You want to assist the poor people. They need 1,000. They need 5,000 ringgit. You can use this money, wakaf money. You lend to them, but most important, you got to coach them. Make sure they do it the correct way, and then get the result. So I suppose if more and more organizations doing this, and we can see today, I so happen this few months before COVID and after COVID, 3 organizations take my name to be the pemegang amanah for yayasan. So that is because everybody see the importance of, one is university, the other one is the religious council, and the other one is local taman. So everybody could see this. So they're looking for example, how to get the corporate to contribute to them. Maybe they ask for a multi-purpose van, for example. So they will be launching there. So people could see this organization, they probably they contribute a van. Or maybe they give some money for whatever purposes. Even the house for the anak-anak yatim, all these people, that need to be assisted. There's so many rumah anak yatim that I've been, because when I was in Bank Islam, we visited all this. It's part of the branding process, we assist them. Some rumah anak yatim, they don't have money to pay electric bill. They don't have money to pay the water bill. But I suppose if that's the case, they better don't do it. Rather than you torture not torture inverted comma, the participant, those participating in this one. But as well, you ask somebody else. You have your land, give land to somebody else. You waqf the land, or you got the house, give. There's so many people now contributing the house for the purpose of rumah anak yatim, poor people, this sort of thing, So it will be run better. It will be run better, and this is part of the branding, because if you go there, you are giving, say, 1 million to one of the orphanage house. That will be published in the newspaper, in the news. So people will say, oh, this organization very good. And that create a name. Then as a result, people will support you more. But need to be capitalized. So I am actually, based on what we see among the latest development today, the local authority, you can have like foundation where this corporate organization contribute money. So there are people that you need to assist, give the money right away, you give. But there are some that they need capital, give them some money, coach them how to make business and so on. Then, inshallah, I think it will be better.
All right.
In terms of taking care of the people in the country.
All right, better, thanks. Just checking with the organizer, how much time do we have in terms of discussing this? Because we need to have 1 hour. All right. Before I go on to the next question, basically talking about sustainable cities and poverty eradication, I would like to open the floor to questions from here or even from online question that the panelists can answer. Can we have perhaps can you identify yourself and then ask who the panelists that you would like to speak with, or for whoever online now, you can also ask the organizer so that we can pick up from here. As we can see in front of us, there is a big screen that we can address those.
Thank you, Fazam.
Yeah.
I'm here.
Yes.
Actually, I just read one question online
All right.
from Ellen Wong, Sabah. The question is Malaysia committed to financing bus businesses? The current bus business model of most urban areas in Malaysia is individual own, individual operate. That is weak in sustainability. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, remember during our school days, we saw all these public buses. We call it public buses, but it's actually owned by someone, some toke or somewhere. It's been going on for many years. So yeah, it was a very valid questions. What happened to the bus business nowadays, and how do we then help them, finance them, or subsidize them to ensure it is run accordingly in the cities. Anyone who would like to take first? Maybe Zikri from the youth perspective, from the social entrepreneurs perspective. Then we go on to Jinwai from the private sector. Then Dato'.
We're touching on the bus issue.
Yes.
Okay. All right, for that person who asked this question, it's very quite concerning in different levels with this bus financing bus. I love our trains, but our buses never come on time. This is like already the big red flag. I see 4 buses all lined up on the same slot, and then and it doesn't add up. I think I'm never a big fan of monopoly, obviously. If anything, if someone could do better, that avenue should be given, that chance should be given, because there is always someone who could do better than the other operator. Just like our friends were saying here on consumers at the end of the day, we smart now. We will shout it out loud. We'll go to social media if we have to. You know how Malaysian netizens are. They and I think that's what she should do. The one who asked this question, to make it known and get people's public opinion. Run a referendum if you have to. But it's accountability. If I have to rely on one service and it's terrible, it just doesn't make sense. And just because there's another competitor coming in and the monopolizer wants to kill it off, that also is is very unfair. So yes, please, whoever is in charge from whichever ministry, do finance new bus operators, because if it's necessary, if it's necessary, they should definitely do it. Period. So, private sector.
All right. So I think on transportation financing, which is, it's not just only bus alone. I think it's in totality transportation financing. Of course, you have your buses, you have your taxis are mostly still private. You have your trains, your MRTs, your LRTs, which is only available in Klang Valley. Of course, you have your, I believe, the KTM ETS, if I'm not mistaken, traveling north and south. So yeah, I think a number of that has already been privatized. But if you're specifically talking about bus, yeah, I guess the only ministries can help it. Privately wise, I'm sure it's very profit driven, and these days car sales has gone up tremendously due to COVID. So funding of buses right now may not be the right choice of financing at the moment. But again, I think this is still on the government side. It seems as though private sector has to do a lot more of the government's job. It seems to be that way, to make things more efficient, to make things more productive as well. But looking at it, my point to the person who asked the question is, yeah, I think you gotta drive it up to the right channel to really ask who should be financing it. It's definitely still a public transportation. It's not private transportation. It's not private business. As Asfa said, last time we had Bus Sekolah, but it was independently owned and run as well, right? And those were really fun. But then again, it's also very dangerous because the bus can only fit 35 people, the bus driver loads it up to 50, right? So it's still profit driven then, right? Yeah, so I guess that's my point on this transportation financing. Yeah.
You bring in, the more profit you will get. Dato', you would like to share experience about your Unizas bus just now, and how it can be linked back to the local authorities, how it can be integrated into the transportation nodes and all that, Dato'.
In terms of the transportation needs, this is very essential. So I feel that this is one of the ways that probably we can help. Can help the organization, the community, and the cheaper means to provide. And of course, now under this scenario, a COVID scenario, as you said, the number of people in the bus has to be reduced. Number of people in the flight also has to be reduced. And in terms of cost, it's going to be increased. But I think this is the time probably that we have to we look forward in terms of the future, what's going to happen. But of course, I feel that with this kind of COVID, there's also the advantage point, because people be more careful, something like that. So in terms of buses, for example, the driver got to be more disciplined, and then the number of people in the bus. And then in terms of financing also, this is one aspect. Under this scenario, of course, the bank got to curb the OPR is very low. They don't make much money, something like that. And then that probably be good to the operator, because you can save your cost. But at the same time, you cannot have more people inside the bus. So these are basically the dilemma, But something that need to be adjusted, so that I think matter of time, thing will be resolved. So once we are accustomed to the new way of doing things, for example, we talk about online meeting, online classes. Last time, probably we have no confidence in this, but it is what is today. So hopefully, with this kind of development, it teaches lesson, so things will be smoothened in the near future.
Can we get one more online question? Or anybody on the floor would like to ask question? For the benefits of the online participants, we have roughly 20 to maybe 20 plus.
Can I read one more question online?
Yes, please. Yes, go ahead.
From Mr. Lee from, I think, Petaling Jaya, local authority Petaling Jaya. How can local authorities package programs that meet the aspiration and flavor of private sector? Any ideas?
Yin Wai, you would like you to come in first?
Okay. How can local authorities package programs that meet the aspiration and flavor of private sector? I think this is more on the partnership between a local authority and the private sector.
Okay. Partnership that, yeah. So I'm only coming from a real estate developer angle. Of course, from a real estate angle, is cost is going up in terms of all the compliance, the contributions, land titles, surveys and stuff like that, infrastructures and whatnot. So if you ask me from a real estate developer point of view, or the lenses, I think that's one thing, that there are certain things that as a developer, we are very privileged to be able to really impact the community, even the surroundings and the environment as well. And by doing so, you and I know there's never a free lunch. Certain cost is definitely transferred, mainly to the consumers. That's a fact, right? However, of course, if there are certain green incentives, initiatives, or social incentives, or even tax reliefs, or not grants, but that can definitely help in terms of really motivating, encouraging developers like us to go into it. But of course, if you're looking on the general perspective of private sector from a F&B retailer, and other services and businesses, I think at the end of the day, the incentives are still the same. As a business owner, if I can contribute back to the society by the local authorities acknowledging it and recognizing it and also rewarding in certain ways, I believe that really lines up to the flavor of a private sector. Yeah, that's my point.
Doctor, you would like to come in from the bank side, maybe from the financial side. Would you like to come in and share your views? What is the private sector's appetite in helping the local authorities in this aspect? Or is it the other way around?
For the bank, as usual, I'm no more banker, ex-banker. As usual, they want to make sure that the payment capacity is going to be there. So now under the new governance of central bank, you could see our bank is better managed compared to before, where we used to have a lot of bad debts and all this. So now it looks like things are better managed, better control, but to some extent will be more hassle to the customers. I remember when I was chairing the committee, the loan committee, especially, for example, the personal financing for the individuals. We can even give more than 100% capacity, more than 100% of your salary, because we know that you have other income. But now, there's a rule. If it must be not more than 80%, it must be not more than 80%. Otherwise, you are not doing the right things in the bank. So because they want to make sure, like last time we have the leeway. You know that some people, they have other income that can be considered. But no more strict. You go back to the basic. What is your income? So likewise, this is what's happening today. And I think one of the ways to get the support from the corporate sectors and for the community, one of the ways is do something like a good proposal, a good proposition. For example, this organization, for example, they can contribute something to the community. As I mentioned earlier, for my Taman, we're going to ask for a multi-purpose van to one of the corporate organizations, for example. So they give, instead of we have to collect money, we have to find ways to get the money, to buy the van, we got somebody. And when they give, it is something good for their company. You have to spend money somehow. Certain allocation must be used for CSR. But there is CSR. You pay how much? Maybe 120,000 for a bus. Otherwise, you have to spend for other purposes that probably does not give good impact to the company. So now with the community there, they see this van contributed by an organization. So you see how people feel proud about their organization. So to me, this is one of the ways. And today, when we try to link a bit to Wakaf, to the Wakaf scenario, Wakaf is something maybe that people are not fully aware. The 34-story building, Menara Bank Islam, is a Wakaf asset there. Because the land being wakf by a Gujarati trader, about 1.2 acre. We erect the building, 34-story. And then who want to fund? The land wakaf is a wakaf land, free land given by somebody. Who wants to finance to erect 34-story building? Tabung Haji finance. But how are they going to get back the money? The partnership with Bank Islam. You rent the entire floors and pay Tabung Haji every month. After 25 years, Tabung Haji got back the money. And by then, Tabung Haji, we surrender the building to Majlis Agama. You got free land, free building. And from that, you can generate a lot of revenues. So not only that, there are so many ways now. Organization, the banking facilities now are quite well equipped, where people can contribute money through various channels. And we can see more and more today people are contributing. And from there, you can distribute to the rightful parties. So that's why people form like this kind of organization, yayasan, or this. It's basically to suit this purpose. So when we have a corporate organization give the money, that is good enough. Otherwise, the individual, they would like to contribute also. Because we, to the Muslim, we are taught, when you die, there are 3 things that can help you. One is your kids that pray for you. Second, what's that? Secondly, amal jarah. Amal jarah is the money that you contribute. And thirdly, your knowledge. Your knowledge. So there's a lot of things that we can share, but maybe due to time limitation.
Right. Maybe we welcome one last question from the, or maybe,
Yes,
yes,
just
physical,
one
yes,
question
please.
online from the platform. From one Muhammad Akib from UEM Sunrise. His question is Malaysia or any financing house in Malaysia committed to help bridging the finances, says for low carbon development and green buildings initiative? Is there any attractive finance package that can be looked at?
Yeah. So it's like basically about bridging low carbon cities, low carbon development, and what are the products that available products that banks are offering, if any, that is available now. Panelists, you would like to come in? Dato, you would like to come in? Yeah, Jin Wai. So basically beyond the personal collateral, basically, if you want to get your loans using your own tanah as a collateral, then it's a different story. So we are talking about project that can finance by itself, right? Yeah.
Project that can finance by itself. Yeah, basically that is what it is. The project that can be financed by itself. Sustainability of the project. There are many things today that we can see. The creativity, maybe the housing developers, their creativity, how they come out. But of course, the cost is there that you got to pay. Through some process, maybe the cost can be reduced by certain reason. So we look at the creativity. For example, we look at the, say, tanah wakaf in Penang, for example. Tanah wakaf, you construct a house on top of it. You can sell the house, but you don't sell the house itself, the property, but you are selling the benefit of use. The period, the lease period, the tenancy period, for example. So meaning that, I mean, in terms of innovation, you can do even up to that extent. So in the sense that something that maybe it cannot be financed at all, you cannot take any benefit from that land because the property, wakaf property, cannot be sold. So if cannot be sold, you got the wakaf asset, you cannot construct building, you cannot sell the property. So with this kind of creativity, you don't sell the property, but you sell the benefit of use. The space for say 99 years, that is what we talk about the leasehold. 99 years, 66 years, and so on. So we find ways how to make it possible, And then, of course, through some process, maybe the price can be cheaper, better. And all this, when we talk about creativity, and then the innovation has to come into place. And sometimes things that we see, it is not possible. But under this scenario, maybe now with the COVID also, new idea will come. New idea will come, then you can do many things that you have not thought before, for example.
I'm sure, I mean, with my limited knowledge, but I've been experienced with some of these energy efficiency and renewable energy works in Malaysia. I'm sure there are quite a number of banks actually has been participating in this green financing work. One of the options in the energy efficiency in buildings is the use of the ESCOs, energy service companies. You know, they come in and they will help you to invest in your premises, in your factories, in your buildings, basically to install certain equipment, energy efficiency, air conditioning system, and all that. It's a huge investment, huge capital, but the client would not need to pull their own fund. It's all done by the private sector. It's all done by the energy service companies. But then the saving from that will then be cost shared between the energy service companies and the owner of the building, the client. So and there is also a triangular kind of agreement between them and the banks. So there are actually quite a number of programs already ongoing in Malaysia on ESCOs. UNDP have been helping the government in developing some of this program together with Jabatan Kerja Raya as well as Ministry of Energy those days. So I'm sure things have evolved nowadays to much better and much concrete agreement between the ESCOs, the clients, as well as the financiers. Can I move on to the last question of the, maybe anyone from the floor? Anybody from the floor? Otherwise, yes, Dr. Smith, yes.
My question to the panelists, because the source of income of local government is from quick rent, from the car park, and from their own property. Because the source of income maybe come from the grant from the state or from the federal. Because we want to know how the acceptance of local government on the concept of municipal finance. Maybe UNDP has experience, because Malaysia, I don't think they have that idea on municipal finance, but maybe Mr. Fazam have an idea. Others member states under UN has it applied this municipal finance.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, depending on the project as well. I mean, there are some experiences where there is a municipal bond that we have developed, but not in Malaysia. Definitely, there are some talks. There are some discussions ongoing at the local authority level, at the state level as well. Looking into financing waste management project, for instance. So, but then how are we going to finance that? Are we going through bond, green bond, or maybe sukuk, or but then at the same time, we are looking into how it will then help the local authorities in terms of managing the proceeds later on, or do we need to hire SPV to manage those? Those are, I mean, I would say at this in Malaysia it is still in the very initial stage, but in many other countries they do have some kind of such financial structure being developed. Looking at the greater level, broader level, at national level, for instance, Indonesia has actually issued a sovereign wealth bond, sukuk, basically looking into how the proceeds can then help together with Basnas Indonesia, how the proceeds can then help the national level as well as the local authority level in terms of financing renewable energy projects and community livelihood projects, which eventually will help in terms of reducing poverty. So yeah, I mean, we do have, but unfortunately in Malaysia is still in a very infant stage. There are some discussion going on with Securities Commission and all that, but besides the normal bonds that I mean sukuk that Malaysian government has issued, other than that, we have not had experience with local authority in that sense. Okay. All right. This brings me to the last question. I just need to have 1 or 2 minutes of your intervention. What would be the successful components for the local authorities and state government to implement this? When you talk about sustainable cities in the era of Build Back Better, is a COVID-19 Build Back Better, and then Datuk talk about the number of people can limited number of people that can go into the bus. It's not like sardine packed bus those days. We have, because of the social distancing, so, and all that is very limited. That's on the bus alone, and going a little bit upper, looking into the whole transportation system in that sense. But then we look slightly higher at the sustainable cities. How do we then? What will be the components that can assist local authorities in terms of them getting their cities green during this COVID-19 era? What will be some of the possible co-finance? We touch a bit on Islamic financing and all that, but what will be key success criteria, or what will be some key components that the local authorities can pick up and then try to adopt and pursue further during this COVID-19 period?
Again, I try to focus more on this, the new approach on the Wakaf. Like local authority also, they can probably sell certain thing within the local authority, and then you sell to someone, to sell to organization, that organization purchase, and then that organization wakaf that property. So you save cost. And then get corporate sectors to be more involved. Because as I say, the corporate sector, they have to spend this money. They have to spend. But where should they spend the money? So it is just that you need to give the correct proposition, value proposition, that can attract them to invest the money, or to spend the money as part of the contribution, their contribution to the local authorities. So I think maybe certain project that you can see that you're going to have in certain local authority, that you get somebody to fund. They can be fund, then they wakaf, or they just fund, and simply a contribution. It can be any form. Because when you contribute, that become your amal jariah. It can be infak, derma, amal jariah, and so on. But wakaf is better, because once you wakaf, that cannot be owned by anybody. It has to remain there, but you can utilize according to the principle. So, like what I mentioned just now, maybe if you have the yayasan, that could be good, where money can be channeled there. And then at the same time, you create program to support the people. Or the other thing, probably, you create program, but get the private sector to sponsor. Then, of course, by doing that, you have the involvement of the corporate sectors, and at the same time, it cut the cost. Will be cheaper cost. The locality do not need to spend much money, but everybody is participating in the program.
Hello. Yep. So I think just piggyback from what Dr. Wan just mentioned as well. He's touching the base from Wakaf angle, and I just lead towards from his ending of his sharing was from the corporate sector. My point, I guess, corporate sector wise, if the local authorities, they are always, they are finding ways to generate revenue, right? To be able to generate revenue, that's where you can do more sustainable exercises and initiatives back to the community or the rakyat, so to speak. I think these days, we're looking at the youngest, whether it's a technology startup company or even any form of businesses, SMEs, not only developers alone. The business owners themselves are really much more environmental focus, society, and also governance as well. So I think one thing is that to answer the question is that where we can come from is, municipals will need to be more engaging to encourage SMEs, not to the point of holding the taxation or the compliance payments ransom to the business owners, but be inclusive. Include us all to what the local authorities want to achieve. Maybe there are individuals or companies that really want to participate it, but do not know how, and also probably is a bit afraid of the I won't say the word ransom is a bit too strong, but in terms of afraid of what would be dawned upon them, which or they're not aware. So I think the key word here I would say inclusiveness. That's one thing that can definitely generate sustainability in all stakeholders, whether it's warung owner, kopitiam owner, mama owner, up to even a high ticket item like a property as well. I think that's where the new generation of business owners are really very much more adaptive and want to contribute back to society and making it sustainable. Put it this way, I think the younger generations, I mean, the baby boomers, the Gen X, Gen Ys, Gen Zs, and the millennials. Millennials business owners, I feel they are very much more environment focused compared to even generations before the baby boomers. Mainly because of different education, maybe different exposure, different peers, I would say. These days, peers are the ones that actually influence our decision, whatever decision that we make, whether it's shopping or whether it's also a contribution. So I feel moving forward the next 10, 20 years, even your sustainable development goals, 2030, 10 years down the road, probably the first 5 years, you will see really a lot of younger business owners stepping up in terms of contributing and wanting to help the environment. But that being said, the younger ones, you know there's a limit. What's the limit? I think a limit in terms of resources, limit in terms of finances, limit in terms of exposure, and definitely support as well. I think these are the limitations. So if you're saying the top 10 or top 20 companies in Malaysia, exclude the GLCs, we talk about privately owned businesses, if they are supportive with this, I'm pretty sure the impact can from top to down rather than just bottom trying to climb up the ladder. That's just my take. Yeah.
Okay, all the answers were much jumbled up, so I ended up not forgetting the question already. So
The question is about we're talking about sustainable cities,
Right.
And then in this COVID-19 Build Back Better, what will be some of the key components that can
Oh,
help
yes.
local authority finance the sustainable cities initiative during this era?
I think most importantly, you need to really listen to what the public feel. I think there's still a few different kind of opinions. There are a group of people who don't want the new normal to be normal. Yeah, there are people who definitely want more measures on safety. But like I said, like the most important part is to really understand what is best for everybody in this case. And it varies, you know. People in KL want something different than people in Pekanbaru, for example. You know, and it cannot be fixed in every city. You know, every city has its own culture. Every city has its own dictation. Who dictates on how people overcome the day and basis. Another thing that I think what the local authorities should do more, other than just listening of what we want, is to look at how we can be more self-sufficient. Because you never know, you know, one day at the end an alien sighting comes out, and then all of a sudden, you know, we have to rely on, you know, on ourselves. So homegrown products is another thing that we should look into. Urban farming is something that I think a lot of us don't really have the know-how, if compared to your time, perhaps, Dato, or our great-grandmas, our great-grandparents. I think it was quite normal to have something around you to be able to source your food. So that's another way to be more self-sufficient in case of, you know, this COVID stuff that's restricting a lot of the things, you know. You just have to listen more, you know. You gotta listen to definitely the younger guys, because I was told, like, starting next year there'll be 7 million new voters who will be eligible to vote. That's a lot, 7 million, all right? And then according to Asia Foundation, the population of Malaysian youth is 43%. In 2018, that number will go up to 50%. That is your future right there. That's who you should be investing more time on these people. And when this population is not even in my age bracket. I'm 34. This is like 18 to 30. You know, this is like huge possibility that there might be some different kind of behavior. And like for private sectors, customer behavior is something that could happen on both ends. Sometimes if you're smart like Facebook, who allows you to be somewhat give access to information that you like instead of access to information that is pretty much neutral. This is what literally is happening. So you have platforms like that that's dictating how you're thinking. And this is very dangerous too, because now you have a tool rather than something you could share your status or your life. It has a way of manipulating your way of searching. It's the same for Google, And this is something, again, that that we need to look into more seriously, because as data becomes so important, your private data is something that there's no rights at all. Like, to be honest, I would like to know, like, where is my data going every time I do my Sejahtera? What if they take it and sell it? This is some of the things that is, this came out because, trying to track. I understand, but it's very important to know how is your data being used and stuff like that. Transparency, yes, it's very important, the transparency of everything. So all this post-COVID stuff, this is some of the results that has come out, and I think we have a right to especially the younger guys. Like, they're very smart. They know what they want. They will definitely ask, where is our human right for our data one day, which is already a discussion. And that's something the big tech guys have to answer. Not me, I'm not a big tech guy yet, but yeah, those guys and our government.
All right, Zikri, thank you so much. Thank you, panelists. If I allow me to just have this conclusion, say it loud. Very quickly, so Dato, we talk about third wave of economy, the Islamic financing instruments, Wakaf, Infaq, and all that is one of the ways where it can help the local authorities in terms of pooling those funds and help them to finance some of the projects. From the private sector's part, Jinwai, you talk about the mantra of quality living spaces, where at the end of the day, the mindset of the business drivers is to move them beyond the profit-oriented part of it, looking more into quality living and all that. So and you have been working together with local authorities for quite a number of projects already, right? And Zikri, you talk about the CSR, where we should go beyond philanthropy. It's more on building branding and how GLCs can also be part of it and help eradicate poverty and help the government in terms of achievement of SDG by 2030. Then we touch a bit on as simple as how we want to finance the bus system in the city, as well as what Mr. Lee from PJ talk about, how we want to see how do we then help private sector to fill up their desire, or maybe it's more like fitting private sectors. How do we see private sector's interest in helping the cities grow as a sustainable cities and all that? So we talked about it just now. And then last but not least, in terms of key component, in terms of building sustainable cities in the COVID era, how do we finance that? Some of the key components, again, the Islamic financing instruments as one of the options. But beyond that, there are some soft part that we should be looking into, the inclusivity part, the inclusiveness, how we gather citizens together in terms of making decision. the public awareness, and Zikri, last point you touched was on the data. It's very important tool. It's not a tool, actually. It's a very important item, commodity, very important commodity that can be used in so many areas. Imagine if those data can help the financial institution to support the local, how they can then translate the data available to help the local authorities into financing their projects on the ground. So, and we touched a bit about municipal bond and also some of the East Coast project just now. So that's it from me as a moderator. Thank you so much to Urbanice, Minister of Housing, colleagues, friends for participating in these events, for inviting us here to discuss about this very important topic. Without further ado, I'll now pass back this to your MC, to the MC. Thank you so much for your support.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fazam Kasban, and thank you to Yang Berbahagia Datuk Wan Ismail Wan Yusof, former senior management member and general manager of strategic relations, Bank Islam Malaysia Berhad. Not to forget to Mr. Chan Jin Wei and Zikri Khalil for being here today. It's a very insightful sharing for today. We do hope we will have more of like today's session in the future inshallah. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you. Let's take a group photo first on stage. Mr. Asfazam ke kanan.